Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Impractical Machinist podcast. My name is Patrick, and you can find me on Instagram as @JobShopperTM.
I'm Cameron from Machining is Cool.
I'm Bradley with Marvel Machining. All right, let's announce the winner from our episode 10 podcast. What we're giving away, the Lixie Hammer.
Lixie Hammer, Machinist Calculator Pro, and some swag
stuff.
Yeah. Should be some stuff from all of us in there. So the winner of the episode 10 giveaway is Noah D. Boss 1195 on YouTube. So congratulations, Noah.
Congratulations.
You are the winner of our first giveaway.
Reach out to Practical Machinist, share your address. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, I'm pretty jealous, honestly. It's a pretty good giveaway.
Yeah, I ended up ordering some Lixie Hammer stuff too.
I'd like to get the calculator also. Seems pretty handy. So anyways, Noah D. Boss, congratulations. You're the winner.
Like, subscribe, hop on YouTube, leave some comments. And we have two guests on today, Julia and Greg from ModuleWorks. You can find them on LinkedIn and Instagram at ModuleWorks. Julia and Greg, if you guys want to introduce yourself and a little background maybe.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Thanks, Bradley. So my name is Julia Hendricks. I work for ModuleWorks for almost 12 years now. And I take care of our partners in the CAD/CAM domain. So my title is Head of Business Digital Manufacturing.
And my name is Greg Saistlin. I'm part of the team that was acquired from Solaritive last June. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing, or the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Solaritive, and the Country Manager for ModuleWorks. Been in this industry for about 30 years. Had a lot of fun in it. So.
All right. And Julia, you're in Germany, correct, at the headquarters?
Exactly. So the headquarters of ModuleWorks is, as you said, in Germany, in Aachen, which is a rather small city close to the border of Netherlands and Belgium. And it's the headquarters of ModuleWorks. So many people obviously are located in Germany, but we have offices everywhere in the world, basically. So 5 official offices, but basically people working remotely from everywhere.
You said you've been there for 12 years. When did ModuleWorks first establish?
So officially we're founded in 2003, so a bit more than 20 years ago. But Jan was our managing director and also founder of ModuleWorks, actually has started writing code back in the 90s.
Yeah, I read that because he came from, was it Delcam?
No, actually,
or was it?
He came from Mastercam. So the origin of ModuleWorks is he started as a Mastercam reseller, and back in the 90s when there were actually no 5-axis machines around, he had the first request coming from a German company who got a 5-axis machine, and there was no software available to run that machine. So
he developed his own software, CAD/CAM, or just the CAM side of it?
Well, he developed a plugin or basically an add-on to Mastercam, where he was able to run that 5-axis machine. And then later he found out, well, basically that plugin that I wrote, that's relevant for the whole industry. I think he back in the days, he thought 5-axis would become more popular. So he decided to basically found ModuleWorks.
Okay. And is that your guys' biggest toolpath development? Is it 5-axis stuff, or is it 3-axis to 5? What's the biggest portion you guys do?
I mean, obviously, we're coming from the 5-axis domain, but by the years, we basically developed everything from 3-axis to turning to simulation, everything which you will find in a CAD/CAM system, basically. But still, obviously, 5-axis is our bread and butter, so a lot of development goes into that one.
Okay. Is there any competition in that field or in that area?
I'd say the biggest competitor, so to say, is maybe in-house development. So companies deciding to develop their own solutions. But there are here and there companies that has, for example, components for simulation.
And you guys don't offer a CAD or CAM system direct to customers. You guys do the behind-the-scenes stuff. You guys license a toolpath to multiple CAM systems, right?
Yes. Obviously, that's part of the, let's say, strategy. So if we were to develop our full CAD/CAM system, we would be in direct competition with our customers. That's not what we want. But we want to help our customers to basically focus on areas where they see their focus, and they can just license and complement to get the full CAD/CAM system. So, for example, if a company decides, okay, my main focus is turning, I want to be the best CAD/CAM company in turning, they might not have all the development capacity to develop a full swing CAD/CAM system. So they license 5-axis, 3-axis technology from us, simulation technology, and they can make sure that they get the best company in turning.
Yep. And what's the process as far as, let's just say, a CAM company approaches you guys? What's the process for them to get toolpaths? How do they decide what toolpaths they want, what they don't want? I know you said if they're focusing on turning, they might develop that themselves and then license the 5-axis. But what is the process as far as how do you guys get the toolpaths for them? How do they integrate with their system? How much are you guys involved with the integration on their side of stuff?
That really depends. So, I mean, I can maybe give one example. There's a large company that did a very honest assessment of where they're good at and where they're not so good at compared to others. And they basically identified some gaps in their portfolio. And they got in touch with us, and we had a couple of meetings to understand, okay, where are the areas where they see themselves having gaps, and basically try to find a match on our side. You could basically say all of our customers from the big toolbox that we have, they pick a la carte the different strategies that they want to have. And once this decision is made, we start off kind of an integration phase. So we sit together with their development team, and they understand better how our software interface, our API works. And maybe within half a year, roughly, they will be able to have the first release containing ModuleWorks software.
And how much work goes in on their side as far as, I mean, if they're taking 5-axis, 3-axis, and just 2.5-axis stuff, what do they have to do to make all of them work together in their system?
Well, I mean, in terms of the integration, obviously you need to work on things like a user interface, for example. You need to make sure that whenever you, for example, in the main system, selected a tool, that this information about the tool is being passed to the ModuleWorks environment. So they're basically connecting bits and pieces that the integrator, the customer has to build, has to create. I think the effort really depends on what the customer would like to have. Does he only want to have toolpath, 5-axis, for example, or does he want to have multiple ModuleWorks software components? And does he want to have his own user interface, or does he want to use our standard user interface? So as you can see, there is like a big range of decision that the customer has to take how he wants to work with us.
So you guys do have a user interface that they can also purchase from you guys and integrate with their stuff. So I notice in some CAM systems, like a big thing is lead in, lead outs, and linking in between toolpaths. Is that something that comes from ModuleWorks, or is that part of their user interface? Because I notice, I don't know which CAM system has it, but one of them has like a vertical arc lead in, and then some don't have that. Is that a ModuleWorks thing, or is that the CAM OEM companies on their own building the lead ins and links?
Again, both is possible. So we do have strategies for lead in, lead outs. We also have strategies for linking, either in between operations, like connecting one operation with the other, but also within one operation that you can do linking moves for a specific pocket, for example, or for multiple pockets in a part. But even that detailed thing is something the customer can decide. So he can decide, well, I have my good working strategies for linking, and I will just apply it to the ModuleWorks toolpath, or I use what ModuleWorks has.
Wow.
It's a lot more in depth than I thought. I mean, I knew you guys had toolpaths, but I didn't know it went that in depth as far as linking. Because I always see people comparing, well, this software I can link these toolpaths better this way, or however they do it. And then in mine, sometimes I notice like, well, I can't do that. Why can't where am I losing that availability to do something like that? And you guys have it. So interesting.
Mm-hmm.
How big of a la carte do you guys have? I mean, could somebody come, if I want to start a CAM company, let's just say Marvel Cam, could I come and do everything, just not develop anything?
Not develop anything that doesn't work. I mean, at least you have to pick the different components and somehow build them together. You have to work on the user workflow. You have to make sure, for example, that there's somehow an operation tree, for example, where you can list all the different operations. So there are, if you look at the full CAD/CAM system, all the different things that are in there, tool management system, I don't know, the selection of machines, the job setup, the CAD kernel, so to visualize the 3D part, all those things has still to be developed. But in terms of toolpath strategy, our portfolio is pretty complete.
Yep. If you got a company like, let's just go, Pat uses SolidCam, I use CamWorks. They both integrate into SolidWorks. Does that add another aspect to the integration? Is that another thing that complicates stuff, or is it CamWorks and SolidCam their own integration into SolidWorks? Do you guys have anything to do with that?
Not directly, but indirectly. In the end, obviously, geometries, like the part has to be transferred. So we talk about interoperability problems. And we need to read different files from different providers like CATIA or SolidWorks. So, there are aspects here and there, but usually they are solved at the customer side, eventually with our help.
Okay.
Wow.
And what is, as far as developing toolpaths, how are you guys developing new toolpaths? What's the process? What does ModuleWorks use for? Do you guys have your own CAD system that isn't available to customers, or are you guys using something that everyone would see?
Okay. So there are basically two questions related to the CAD. We don't have a CAD system whatsoever. What we do, we have kind of a test sample integration, so to say, where we can visualize our toolpath strategies. We integrated everything into a low-end CAD system called Rhino. You might have heard about that. So we wrote a plugin to Rhino, and customers that want to explore all the things that we do, we just provide that plugin, and it's like a CAD/CAM system light, where you can just simply play around with what we have.
As far as development in your guys' facility, how do you guys test? How do you guys test the toolpath? Do you guys have machines do real world testing, or is it all simulation?
Well, that's a very good question. So again, multiple sides to that. So there is one area of us which is called digital dentistry. So we are also in the not only metal cutting business, we are also in the dental business, where basically there are little machines that can produce dentures or bridges, implants, this kind of stuff, where we have created a fully automated solution. And because we had to provide a fully automated solution, usually there are no engineers in that domain, and dental domain. They just want to click a button and everything shall work. We had to get machines in order to do end-to-end testing. We had to really understand the full process. We had to look at every aspect of machining. And in order to provide that kind of full solution, we had to get our own machine, had to do our own testing, had to walk in the shoes of our customers completely to make a really closed system. On the machining side, we are yet about to get our first machine, so we haven't had any machines in the past. So usually when we do testing with software components. So we have our own testing tools. We run millions of parts in the background, actually every night. So whenever our developers commit some changes to the software code, in the night we do a testing run and we see that everything still works. But it's not end-to-end testing.
Yep.
But we do work with cutting tool companies, machine tool builders as well, whereas we will run pilots on their machines. And from the Solarative side, we do machine testing on everything we put out, and we're starting to do more of that with ModuleWorks, obviously. So some of the latest things that we've come out with, we put on machines and test them.
Yep. And with the Solarative side, I guess most listeners probably know what volume mill is. Might not have heard of Solarative, but what all does Solarative offer, and what was ModuleWorks' reason for acquiring Solarative?
how do I start? So first of all, volume mill is a product that's somehow similar to what we offer. Yeah, you could say that in the past it has been regarded as a competitor in a certain domain, and we decided that actually it's a good complementary fit into the product portfolio that we have. It makes us more complete in terms of toolpath strategy. So that's the main motivation that why we have acquired Volume Mill. Also because of how present they're on the market. So as you said, most of the people know Volume Mill, but they might not know ModuleWorks. So with that move, we basically get much more visibility even in the complete manufacturing market.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting how many people don't know what ModuleWorks is. I'm on a couple different social media platforms, and you see people doing the whole cam comparative, mine's better, blah, blah, blah. And then if you share what ModuleWorks does, they're like, oh, I didn't know that. And you'll get some people that are like, well, my cam system produces better tool paths. And well, so does it really produce better tool paths than the next one if we're using the same ModuleWorks tool paths behind the scenes?
Yeah.
I mean, what is better and what's not better? What can change there behind the scenes if you guys are licensing the same thing? I mean, user integration, what you see on the screen, and maybe, like you said, if they're not, maybe some of these companies aren't licensing the same tool paths. Maybe some of it's their own that they're developing in house and not using the same. But
it's also what, even with Volume Mill, right, which is a much compressed area of focus. Through our experience, we've seen our licensees use certain functions or not use certain functions because there wasn't a 1-to-1 ratio with what they had existing. So somebody on one platform could say, let's say they use platform X and they also have access to, platform Y, and they'll be running Volume Mill in each platform. They're like, why is this different in this platform? Why are they not identical? And it has nothing to do with us and what we developed. It's the choices that platform made, the decisions they made.
I noticed that. I had a friend go work somewhere and they were using a new software and it had Volume Mill, and he was asking me questions about it and he was sending me screenshots. I'm like, well, you should have this button function to change this. He's like, well, I don't have that. And I was like, well, and then I started realizing that, what you just said.
For us, we do the integration into Siemens NX. Well, Siemens NX and then our Nexion, our standalone platform, they always have what is the latest in Volume Mill. Everything's in there, right? So there's no features that we don't put into NX. So it's always a good measuring stick to see where we're at.
Okay.
And as far as Nexion platform, I've heard a little bit about that. What exactly is that? Can you share for listeners?
Yeah. So the idea behind Nexion, it was actually much like ModuleWorks. We had our own internal platform developed for testing our toolpaths. And a lot of our developers or programmers weren't necessarily CAM users. So it was easier for them to develop a platform that they could, run toolpaths on. So what we did is we further developed that and created, what I would call like portable technology. So for the companies that don't have a Volume Mill toolpath, say CATIA, and they want to have the ability to benefit from that toolpath, they can use Nexion alongside of CATIA, where they'll export, geometry to Nexion. You'll create your toolpaths and then export the app data or CL data, whatever flavor it wants, bring it back into the host CAM system, and then you can post as you would normally, right?
Okay.
So it's kind of a means for providing technologies to a broader spectrum of users where we may not have a relationship with that company.
Okay. And will we see with ModuleWorks taking Solaritive and Nexion, will we see any further development with that offered to more users?
It's something that we're talking about. There is some intrigue, again, like Julia pointed out. We never want to appear as being competitive to our customers in any way. However, there's also a significant amount of benefit being able to create another method for end users
Yep.
to access technologies and provide feedback to us as well directly.
Yep.
It would accelerate development and improvements to technologies.
Yep. And do you guys, as ModuleWorks or Solaritive, have anything for users to reach out for enhancements or say, hey, is this something we might see, or is this something that we could see, or offer advice, or is that done more on a reseller level, kind of through the chain of, user reaches out to reseller reaches out to OEM, and then it goes to you, or is there a direct path?
Yeah. So from the volume mill volume turns perspective, we haven't really talked about volume turn. All of our licensees or the end users, so let's say it's a CamWorks user and you have an idea that you want to present to volume mill. We're always open to those things. We have been historically, and that's probably one of the biggest differences between ModuleWorks and Solaritive, is that we are directly engaged with end users.
Yep.
In fact, VoluTurn was developed entirely on the needs of a major aerospace engine manufacturer. It didn't come to us from a CAM company or someone in the middle. It was directly from the end users.
Okay. And that's VoluTurn. When was that released? It's fairly new, right?
That's about 3 to 4 years old. Yeah.
Okay. Because I just saw it was available for me, I think last year might have been. And that kind of follows the same volume mill type of parameters for roughing strategies. Yeah,
same idea, controlling the formation of chips and eliminating any sort of over engagement or dwelling on ceramic inserts. And we are in the midst of adding additional tools outside of just round inserts.
Okay,
that's pretty cool.
Okay, sweet.
I don't do any turning, so I stay away from turning as much as possible.
He can't even keep a part of the chuck.
Nope. I step on the foot pedal and drop it all the time.
So one thing I wanted to mention, just in general, is until I met Brad, I didn't know ModuleWorks was a thing.
Same.
And it's interesting to me. You guys are running a lot of stuff behind the scenes. Like, I was going through your guys' website a few days ago, and I was looking, you have a list of all the softwares you guys are involved with. And I couldn't think of a CAM or machining related software that you guys aren't involved with. It was really interesting. And it's funny because in my mind, I always assumed, like, I use SolidCAM. They've developed everything from profile to a pocket to iMachining to 3D HSR and all this other, all these other toolpaths they have. And, to look at that and realize, well, I don't know what all ModuleWorks is involved with, but no, they're not. It's not all 100% made by them. It's sourced from ModuleWorks. It might be sourced from someone else. And it's just interesting to see that. And that also starts to come back to, I think it was before we started recording, Brad mentioned how different softwares, a lot of times all you have to do is learn their language. You have to learn the right button, the right statement, the right parameter, but they all kind of have the same, not all of them, but quite a few of them all have the same sort of base functionality. So it's interesting to meet, I guess, the brains behind that in ModuleWorks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's no different than many other industries where you drive an automobile. It doesn't necessarily need Chevy or Ford makes every single component in that vehicle.
Yep.
Yeah. It's almost like there has to be off the shelf something somewhere.
Sure. Yep.
It's more efficient. It's already figured out somewhere. So why put in all the time and effort and energy and troubleshooting to figure it out for yourself when you could just pick it?
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Imagine auto dealers trying to make their own tires.
Right.
Just crazy.
Yeah.
So you don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time.
Yeah.
It makes it actually too expensive for all the industry, and it just wastes engineering capacity. So if there are hundreds of developers rewriting the same toolpath cycle over and over again, there's no benefit to the end user. It's actually the opposite. At the end, that makes the software more expensive without getting any benefit from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reinventing the wheel is a good way to put that, because that's exactly what
really
would be
is.
happening. A question I had is, do you see a one-click, like a one-click automated roughing strategy for 3 or 5 axis in the future?
I think the answer to this is certainly yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, the time aspect, when this come, I think is maybe when I will retire. I don't know. I
No.
think full automation is a very big word, and lights out factory, right, is the thing that we kind of dream of. And I mean, certainly, ModuleWorks has is part of the solution, but will not be the solution to that. So we do everything that we can, and from our side, to reach the goal of automation, also for 5-axis. And I think in some domains this already works, like dental, I mentioned earlier. It is 5-axis, it's full 5-axis, and you don't have to know anything about toolpaths to produce a denture. So there's light on the horizon, but it's still a long way to go.
What about what about with 3 axis? I would assume you would start with 3 and then go to 5.
Yeah, I think especially if we maybe even talk about things like prismatic parts, probably something realistically that will be targeted first.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, you guys know all of the various little details that you have to consider to produce a good toolpath.
Right.
And right now, I mean, we're in a situation where in the CAM system, you can produce a toolpath without knowing on which machine it should run, right? You create a toolpath and you don't necessarily have to pick a machine.
Yeah.
So how can you expect the toolpath to be 100% good if it is not even aware of which machine it will be put on, and it might not even be aware of the material that will be cut?
Yeah.
So I think in order to reach full automation, might it be for prismatic parts or very complex freeform shaped parts like an impenner or whatsoever, you have to give the CAD/CAM system much more detail about the environment. So there have to be some architectural changes in the CAD/CAM system to get to full automation. And I mean, some of those aspects are considered today, like in VolumeL, you have the technology wizard. You can, at least very basically define your setup. You can say, okay, I have a very rigid tool holder, or the tool holder is not so stable. So it considers some of the factors of your environment, and then it takes a decision for you about, okay, how deep can I engage? What can be the side step? What are the feeds and speeds? So in order to really get to automation in any kind of aspect, we first have to make the CAD/CAM system more aware of what the setup is.
Right. And with 3 axis, I mean, it's really not a difficult. It's already pretty much automated, in my opinion, as far as like 3D roughing, for example, or like automated roughing. So I mean, you tell it, this is the part, this is my fixture, this is the tools I'm going to use, or the tool that I'm going to use. My feeds and speeds are already built into that, and so that's already a thing that's out there. You can generate toolpath just based off of that information. But then it would be cool to have something where you could go from one tool to the next. Like say a pocket gets too small for a tool that you have, or too deep for the tool that you have, to switch from one tool to the next and automatically figure that chain out for you.
Yeah.
CAM. That's CAMWorks.
Yeah.
But I think you named it here. So you still are in the driving seat, right? You have to decide about which tool do I take, because you are aware either of the tools that sit in your job shop, and you are even aware of maybe the specifics about the tool, that you are able to cut that material with that tool. Right. So all those little decisions that you already take because of your experience, we cannot expect from somebody entering that industry. And I think we're all aware of, I mean, it's all around us, like the skill gap, and that we don't have enough people filling all the jobs in manufacturing. So, and also making that environment more attractive, even for like women, right? We barely see women in this industry. I think there are many, many, many different aspects that we have to consider if we talk about automation. So it's not only about lights out factory, it's also about the challenges that we face in the industry.
Yeah.
And I brought up CAMWorks as, I mean, they've had feature recognition for quite some time. And I've shared with them plenty of videos of parts that I've programmed, but there's a lot behind the scenes that I had to set up to get there. And I can rough out a pocket and I can tell it to grab a smaller tool and pick out the corners, but it's a lot of, I mean, I've been using it for 15 years now, so I've developed it over time to work for me how I want it to work. But like you said, there's so much setup that goes into it to get it to do that. And I don't have mine in-depth setup. I have it where it'll grab a 1/2-inch tool and then jump down to a 1/4-inch tool, where I do have the ability to recognize the largest inscribable circle and then step down on its own, but there's so much pre-set up to get that to actually function correctly, and sometimes it doesn't do it. So it's easier for me to build it how I would program it myself with a 1/2-inch. Now let's step down to a 1/4-inch, and then if I need to go further from there, I'll just add that next tool path rather than trying to force CamWorks to do what I need it to do. And I'm sure there's people that know it far better than I do to get it to do that stuff. But I get in the tech database and there's just, I mean, it's crazy how many options you have in there to get that to work.
Mhm.
And I know most of the other CAM systems have similar stuff, and I don't know how in depth they get to doing that. But
It's hard to imagine that there can be just a fully automated version of that where you don't have to go in and, define what tool, like define all your tools and your cutting parameters and all that stuff and all the things that you've defined over 15 years in the background.
Yep.
And it's hard to imagine something being more effective than that with, a couple clicks and not,
especially with how much parts change from part to part.
Yeah. The user variables, the environment variables, right? Materials, tools, all these things. So, a lot to consider. It probably next to impossible to fully automate everything out of the box, but once it's in your shop and it understands your environment, you can, after tribal knowledge that's associated with your shop, then you can start making some magic.
And like the dental example you gave, I imagine you're using the same machines. It's a turnkey solution, right? So they're getting the same machine and the same tools that you developed the software with, or all the toolpath with, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's an enclosed environment,
right?
Right. So there are some companies doing this today in the machining world where they have a DMU 90 that's set up as a cell. It comes with a license of the CAM software. The entire environment is isolated,
right?
And they can just continuously repeat it anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
That's exactly how it works in the dental space as well. I mean, automation is possible because you fix the parameters. You said, okay, I only have that machine, and this is the numbers of tools that I have, and this is the stock size. It's always the same. And like it's called nesting and dental, the placement of the dentures in that stock. So basically and also the family of parts is always the same.
Yeah.
They always look very similar. And
unless you're making teeth for like a hippopotamus or something.
Right.
Whenever you have a closed system, automation is possible today.
Yeah.
But as you increase the variables, obviously it gets a magnitude more complex.
And I guess you could do something like that. Say you have a company that develops their own products. You could build their machines, build the tooling in the machines and the work holding and the stock sizes to not be variables, right? So that stuff stays the same all the time. And then they have, say a part family where there's certain dimensions of that part. They're similar shapes, but certain dimensions change. I imagine you could develop a pretty automated version on a larger scale from the, like the dental example like that. But how often does that really happen? How often do you have, maybe with production shops, I guess, but job shops, which I'm not sure what the market share is for CAM softwares, but I figured job shops is probably the highest on the list. And that's nothing but variables.
I suppose, like you said, though, if you got a product, let's just take a cell phone, for example, they don't change very much over year to year. I mean, they change slightly, but if you had something like the dental setup where, you're machining the case of a phone, it's never going to change very much to where you could automate.
Yeah.
Fully.
Mold making, say you're a cell phone case company, right? You could probably automate your mold making for that.
Yeah, and this is happening today. And here, actually, the challenge is because you have so many so many parts that you want to machine to reduce the cycle time. So they spend months of optimizing the CAM program to its best because each seconds in machining costs hundreds of $1,000.
Right.
Right.
What is ModuleWorks or even Solarative on the volume side? What are you guys working on now? Is there anything new that we can expect to see? I see you guys post a lot on LinkedIn and Instagram, new stuff coming out. Is there anything we can expect to see? Anything cool? And
Yeah,
are we going to see any changes with Volume Mill with ModuleWorks acquiring them?
I can say, I mean, we always have to be careful what we say, but I can say in the next year or two, there will be some significant enhancements to milling.
Millen?
Yeah.
Any details on the enhancements?
Well, it's segmented, right? So there's pieces that we're putting together. So there's one product that we're just about ready to launch called Feed Control. That is essentially a physics-based chip formation control, right? We've done some on-machine testing with it, and even on top of volume mill, I had one of my guys. He cut another 20% of cycle time off of volume mill, and this is a seasoned programmer who obviously knows volume mill really well. So that was pretty impressive. Certain geometries lend themselves better to this type of technology.
Yeah.
But, so maybe not everything will get 20%, but might be 8, but still it's 8%.
Right.
It also works on finishing tool passes as well. So this should be a significant improvement in milling. Like I said, that's probably weeks away from the launch, for at least on my side, from the NX side.
No, that's exciting.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
I mean, all the developments that we do right now, as I said earlier, we have pretty complete portfolio in terms of toolpath and simulation. And the major developments that we do right now are all going in the direction of automation. So whatever helps automation, we're developing right now. One aspect is the physics stuff that we do currently, a so-called physics engine. I talked about the environmental description earlier. So it's we're working on something next to feed control called smart roughing, where you can define your environment, like the machine you have, the tool that you want to use, the material you want to cut, and then it automatically decides about the cutting parameters. And it will not only decide about the cutting parameters, but will take the optimal ones based on the capabilities of the machine and the system or the setup that you have. So this is a big area. The other area which also supports automation and data, manufacturing data. So, I mean, you all know inside the CAM system, we know a lot about things that we want to do. We sometimes know about the setup, we know about the part, the target geometry. But once we go to the machine, the only thing that we provide to the machine is the NC file. So all of a sudden, we only provide some toolpath points, and all the information that we had is lost. So basically, the machine is pretty stupid because it just follows that points without knowing anything about what it's actually doing. And we're working on a data format to use as a vehicle between, basically CAM and CNC.
Wow.
Where we can provide the CNC, the full setup, the full environmental description, and make it smarter.
Interesting. So will there be entirely new controls developed in order to handle that information, or
we luckily also work with the control makers?
Okay.
So we work with the 3 out of the 4 major control makers, and they will be able to understand that language. The product is called MDES, Manufacturing Data Exchange Specification.
Okay.
And we work together with them so they can read in those files.
Wow, that's
and
pretty
make
big.
something with that.
Yeah.
Obviously, they want to, for example, run simulation, have a collision avoidance system. So the machine no longer would cut itself. It would always know about where it is and then stops in case there is a collision.
Yeah.
Even in jog mode.
Interesting.
So even in jog mode, you would no longer be able to
Wow.
harm the machine or harm the part. it would always know what is the current setup of the machine and would not collide with any part.
Okay. So how would it
Wow.
know exactly where that stuff is?
Because we're closely integrated to the control, so we get their positions. Actually, we
Okay.
get them 600 milliseconds in advance, so we not only know where it is right now, but we also know where it will be in 600 milliseconds. And with that information, we're able to detect collisions, and then we'll stop the machine safely, because the 600 milliseconds is enough to make the machine stop.
Okay. That's
That's
pretty cool.
really cool.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow.
Sounds expensive.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, what's that versus a $300,000 machine, though?
Yeah. Right. What's cheaper?
That I tell you,
What's the timeline for that? Go ahead, Pat.
I was going to say that would keep certain people from milling into the table of somebody's brand new 5-axis mill.
Yeah.
Is that something that you would have to have set up in your CAD CAM system, close to what it's going to be in the machine? Have your fixtures, everything in there, so it knows everything.
So, I mean, that's the part of the MDES topic, or the vehicle, the data transfer that we need. So currently you're able to do all the setup theoretically on your machine. So it already, for example, is installed on a Siemens controller. And all the setup the machine operator has to do. He has to tell the system, this are the tools, this is the fixture, this is the part. And sometimes machine operators are lazy, so they just think, okay, it's safe what I did, I'll just let it go. I don't want to type in all this. I don't want to define all this. So basically, this MDES product is an enabler for this collision avoidance system, which runs on the control to make sure nobody has to enter anything, but you just get a snapshot of what you defined in your CAD/CAM system and basically transfer to the machine. Plus, in case you do have different tools in the machine, it will recognize the different ID, and you can then, and I mean, that's not done, but this is the concept, you can then export again that MDES file, transfer it back into your CAM system, and redo the calculation based on the actual setup on the machine.
Wow.
So you get kind of a feedback loop.
So will that act as a on the CAM system side? Will it essentially be a plug into a CAM system to make that work?
And again, luckily, we work with the CAD/CAM partners so closely that with this, let's say, unique position in the market, working with so many control makers, machine tool builders, and CAD/CAM system, the goal is that everybody speaks that language natively. So you don't need to install another plugin or whatsoever, but there will be a button inside the CAD/CAM system, for example, Autodesk, to say export my MDES file, and then you can import it, for example, on a Tucson machine, at the end solutions machine.
Right. Okay, so it's just an added feature built into the CAM system.
Exactly.
It'll end up coming with the next software drop, essentially.
It is already there. It was released in December last year, so actually 1 year ago. But our partners obviously have their own release cycle. So whenever, for example, they take a version today, they decide to work with our now upcoming December release, it will take, for example, a year for them to release it onto the market.
Right.
Because they have their own testing cycle, their own release cycle, and whatever you see on the ModuleWorks website doesn't mean that it's necessarily available already in the CAD/CAM systems.
I was going to ask that because I see some posts on Instagram sometimes, and I'm like, well, I don't see that yet.
Yeah.
And so when you guys are doing these releases, I'd assume there's bug fixes going into that as well. How do bugs get fixed so if I'm programming something and I find a bug and I send it out to my reseller, how does it get to you guys? How do you guys fix that? It's not always going to be a ModuleWorks problem. It could be the user interface side, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the first step is that the reseller would send it to the mother company, and they would, for example, you have a contact to a Mastercam reseller, they would send it to CNC Software, which is the maker of Mastercam. They would analyze the problem and then eventually identify it's coming from ModuleWorks. They would contact ModuleWorks, and we would produce a fix for them and a service pack which they can then include in their master conversion.
Okay. I got a suggestion for something we developed. Can you guys develop a post that is universal for all systems, that's user friendly?
Yeah, posting is a very delicate topic, right? You know, you do everything in the CAD/CAM system, and then you run it through the post, and all of a sudden it's a different thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And some of us are locked in with the reseller that they have to fix it, or some of us try to fix it, and it's every system's different, and we need a universal
Yeah,
processor.
I can feel this pain. I think in the CAD/CAM or the manufacturing industry, it's all about the interfaces. I think in general, so much energy and time is lost with managing the different systems that you use. If you look at the larger organization, they have an ERP system that someone needs to be connected to the CAM. Eventually, there's a CAD system in between, and you have a post, then you have a control. You have a machine that could be a different provider than the control. So in the end, all those different providers, they have to talk to each other. And that gives a massive problem with connecting all the different bits and pieces.
It's like playing the game telephone.
When I got in this industry, that was one of the things that I just could not understand. I was like, how can that be? That's like you go fill up your gas, but you got to go to have a special nozzle on the gas pump to see if it fits your car. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah. Look what happens on the electrical vehicle side. Even there now you have different plugs.
Yeah.
And
not just one RJ11 for everything, you know.
No.
Right.
Oh, that's phones too. Oh, they're kind of trying to make it all universal, but everybody's got a new phone plug to charge their phone.
Yeah.
Standardization, not having standards actually kind of ruins the dream of automation. I think we have to finally establish some standards in the industry to reach automation.
And back on the automation, you guys are partnered with Toolpath, right? And they have some automation type of stuff going on. I'm not too familiar with them, but I know you guys recently partnered with them and are developing stuff for them. Are you guys doing the toolpath stuff and the estimating stuff for them, or?
We provide the toolpath in that case, but they have their own logics, including AI, to do some smart quoting and estimations, and later on also programming. And that's actually the full story about ModuleWorks. So we want to be an enabler to the market for higher level CAM products, so to say. So we want to deliver, let's say, the basic algorithms, the math behind the toolpath, and companies like Toolpath Labs, they then take it to the next level.
So Toolpath Labs is essentially licensing the same toolpath, but what they're doing is they're trying to automate it on their end for the end user.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's kind of similar to what I do in CamWorks, but they're just given a full package ready to go for the best solution based on your tools, whatever you have in your tool crib ready to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's interesting.
Yeah, Toolpath seems like it'll be pretty neat. I'm excited to see what that's actually like.
So I have a question for you guys.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got a solid CAM user, a CamWorks user, and you're using
Fusion.
Do you guys get into debates and arguments, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
So our actual original group Pat started was a solid CAM group, and he invited me into it, and I was like the virus in that group. So I got Pat kicked me out at one point in time. But they we all, to me, it's like I said, I like to watch CAM videos on all software, because if I see someone do something, I try to figure it out in my system. How can I do that same thing? And they might label the button red, mine's labeled blue. I just got to find the button to do it. Yeah. And, sometimes someone like Pat or Cam will share something in our group and say, hey, I'm trying to do this. And I might be able to say, well, in my software, this is what I do. Yeah. And it can help them. Sometimes we go back and forth to which one's faster or which one. Yeah. But it comes down to user experience. I know my software. I know where everything is. I know how to produce the toolpath I'm trying to do.
We actually got into that the other day, didn't we? Didn't Kenny show you?
I'm sure we did.
Oh yeah, Kenny. Yeah, he showed some pretty. He's a Power Mill user.
Yeah,
and he showed some pretty cool features. But one thing he did show was their ability to create a work plane off, which I think this is more of a CAD thing, a work plane off the view you currently see. And I was like, well, that's kind of cool. I didn't know anything about that. And then I dug into it on the SolidWorks side, and I was able to do it too.
Yeah.
So I was like, Kenny, it's not that cool.
No.
But Greg, Brad, that's actually quite interesting, because I think one of the most common question towards ModuleWorks is, okay, what's the best CAD/CAM system out there? And I think the answer to this is, well, the one that you can handle the best.
Yes.
So if you're used to it, then obviously you will always prefer CAMWorks over any other, and it will be hard to convince you of Fusion or anything else. And I think that's the key. The key differentiator is the workflow, and to which software you got trained on and which you like the most in terms of the workflow, which works for you.
Yeah.
Yep. And everybody's going to take to each system different.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of times it's what you're first introduced to, because that's what you see, and it's just that's the norm to you. And then when you jump into something else, it
Feels foreign.
well, I don't like that.
You can almost liken it to changing jobs. Like I look at what Brad does with CamWorks, and there's some things I'm envious of, but then I don't know the other side of it. There might be some things, if I started using it, maybe I wouldn't like it. Maybe, like SolidCam has 3D eye machining. I might really miss that because that is a powerful toolpath. Or there might be something in the workflow that I might miss. And you don't know until you jump ship and change softwares.
Yeah, 100%. Like I see Brad do some things, like with this feature recognition, for example, in CamWorks. I mean, you have stuff like that, and I'm like, man, like I see all those different features that you have and the way you have things set up. I'm like, man, it'd be pretty cool to use that in Fusion. But then I look at Fusion, I'm like, but the user interface on this is way easier to use than CamWorks. But I don't know. It's all apples to oranges. But it's I don't know. But it's also kind of apples to apples if you think about it, because they all have a lot of the same stuff in the background, like you were saying. You just got to find the right button to use it.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And that's usually when I see them arguments going on, and I don't know why. I always tend to hop on Facebook or any forum, and I should just stay off of it. But everyone's always like, well, which CAM system should I go with? And I always say, break it down to 3 that you can find. Look into ModuleWorks, do your research. And most of the time people are like, well, what is ModuleWorks? I don't even know what that is. It's, well, look into it, figure it out. And if you realize that maybe your 2 are licensed in almost the same toolpath, now take both of them, run some parts on each one and see what you take to, what you understand, what you can get that toolpath done faster, and you're not confused at it. And that's probably the one you should go with.
Yeah. And then take support into consideration too.
Yeah,
exactly. I think also the reseller, the value-added reseller, they have a big influence on that. If you have a great reseller that supports you, that is really techy and knows the manufacturing problems, then or documentation could be another aspect. Having like great information available on YouTube or whatsoever.
Right.
I think what's also coming up more and more is having Copilot, Microsoft Copilot. Next or inside your CAM, where you can just ask the ChatGPT, I want to run this toolpath, it doesn't work, what's the problem? And it will figure out in the documentation, the specific area about how to handle your problem.
There's times I find, like, again, with SolidCam, sometimes it's almost too smart for its own good, because it'll, like turning in particular, I'll say that, like SolidCam's turning can be a little finicky. And a lot of times that's because it's looking at what's already been machined. It only wants to machine what has stock left. And there might be one section of a toolpath that just makes it not work, but it doesn't tell you that. And so I think SolidCam 2 brought out like a AI or chat GPT type of search bar in a recent version. I'm still back in 2019, so I don't have access to it. But that kind of stuff will go a long way, because depending on how much support there is for that CAM software, it might be hard. Okay, I got to send out a ticket and wait for them to answer it, and it might be a day, it might be a couple of hours, but I'm working on this job right now. So of course, I suppose you could always try to call if they have, a resource for that. But if you can just go online and either find a video or find a resource like an AI chat bot type of thing, that is quite handy.
Give you the power to
And
solve
that-
your own problems.
And that's where when you're buying software, find a reseller that is there to help you and going to help you fast.
One of the things for me, since 2010, I've just been focused on rough milling, in specific areas, or rough turning, and working with ModuleWorks. What's interesting for me is I'm now starting to engage with companies that are in the incubation period, ideas. So these things, like you mentioned, toolpath. So there are a lot of companies out there that are working on automating programming or generating toolpaths, and they're in contact with us because they don't want to have to develop a 3 or 5 axis toolpath. That's just kind of a waste of their time and money. So they'll license it from us, but we get to see what it is exactly that they're working on.
Yeah.
So for me, it's really interesting, and I'd love to kind of find a way to bring end users and technologies and the industry together so people can contribute in different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you've been in this industry for a long time, you probably have friends that have solved the problem in machining a thin wall or whatever it is, something. And it'd be great to be able to share some of those ideas or, personal innovations throughout the industry.
Yeah.
And that's why I asked if Solaritive or ModuleWorks has a direct line of communication to end users, because sometimes I'll submit an enhancement to my reseller or I'll send them something and it's like, hey, I'd like to see it go this route. And what they usually do is they'll give me a workaround. And it's like, well, I don't want to work around. This is something I run into every day, and it's an enhancement, not something I'm having issues with. And sometimes it gets frustrating. I do it every day. I program parts. 50, 60 parts a week. And if I didn't have to do this, it'd be more efficient on the end user side. And I don't need a workaround to do it. I'm sharing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Make it better.
Yeah. It could be in like a forum model where things are voted on. And
That'd be
obviously, we don't want enhancements that, I'd like the buttons to be green and not blue.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I know. And I've shared with my reseller this too. Maybe Modular Solaritive can offer it. My wife owns a salon, and we had some point of sale software that was salon, but they have a user interface where users can go and submit ideas, and then they get voted on. And depending on how the votes go, or users can also go in and suggest, hey, I have this problem too. And it was a pretty cool thing because we had a lot of issues with it. And I'd go on there and be like, hey, I can't do this. I can't add this under a customer. And then you'd see 500 people say, yeah, I'm having this issue too. And then the next year that release, they'd have it fixed or updated. So it was a kind of a direct communication line for users.
That's pretty cool. Let the users let your users tell you what all the pain points are for you.
Yep.
And then give you the ideas of how to make it better as well.
Yeah, especially on the ModuleWorks side, because you guys usually will have a reseller and then an OEM CAM system in between you guys before anything gets to you.
Exactly.
Sometimes
I think that's probably the main disadvantage that we have sitting on the very last chain and the supply chain.
Yeah.
That's we barely get end user feedback, and we obviously fully rely on our customers OEM to kind of gather all that feedback and then somehow compress that for us and give it.
Yeah.
But usually, I think it's a combination of getting feedback from our OEMs, making own experience doing machining, and also having some very good resellers and end users that we can directly collaborate with to get feedback from them.
Yep. I suppose too, if you open up floodgates to all end users, you're going to have to sift through.
Yeah.
Is this an OEM problem, or is this our problem, or is this something they need to fix?
We're not good in handling too many end user requests. So if you imagine that all our OEM companies, the end users would come to us, we would be overwhelmed by the inquiries, and digesting that, and
Well,
all this would just kind of stop us from development.
There are ways to manage that. It's kind of an environment what they describe as fifth generation innovation that allows input from the outside world into the development of whatever it is, whether it's technologies or products, etc.
Yeah.
So it can be done, it can be managed. It doesn't really exist in the CAD CAM industry today,
Yep.
not to my knowledge. But yeah, this idea, this podcast, getting engaged with you guys, I think is, might even be kind of like a first step for, end users out there in the world to know who we are.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
Well-
was going to say that too. I mean, even if you open up a line of communication, there's so many programmers that don't even know what ModuleWorks is. So chances are the programmers that know what ModuleWorks are and they want to be involved, you're not going to have hundreds of thousands of them. There's going to be a few that know that really want to get involved with it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, we have, I don't know, about 500 customers, that we're in direct contact with, through Solaritive. Our users know that they can submit enhancement requests, on anything. And yeah, we have to validate them to see it,
Yep.
but we're not swamped. We're not
Yep.
over and inundated by it. And it's over time, it's kind of narrowed down to a couple dozen what I would call power users.
Yep.
You know?
Sure.
So
Yeah, there's certainly ways, but it's probably an area where we had to get better at basically for the whole industry, for the benefit of the whole industry, right? The more we know about machining challenges, the better our software will get.
right. So as of today, if you're an end user and you want to submit some sort of enhancement request, how would you go about that?
I mean, usually today we get probably, obviously it's different for Volumal and ModuleWorks. So
Well, I was going to say, whatever, just send them to me.
yeah.
Do you want us to put your email on the screen?
Do that.
Yeah. I mean, usually we would involve our OEMs. So we would figure out, okay, what is the CAM system that he's using, which reseller he's in contact with, and then
Yeah.
together with the reseller and the OEM, we would find a way to figure out where the problem sits, and then we would ask our OEMs, okay, do you want us to handle this directly? And then we're always fine and supportive, obviously, but sometimes they say, okay, we would like to handle this ourselves, or maybe it's even a problem sitting on their side. So it's,
Yeah.
we're always, we answer all inquiries that we get, but sometimes we have to refer to the OEMs to fix that issue.
Right. It would be nice to just have a button on the ModuleWorks website, and you just click that. Give you a pop-up window. You put in your information, what country you're in, what CAM platform you're using, or software you're using, and then what the enhancement is you want, or what recommendation you may have, or whatever. That way, it's just a central place for everybody to go to, and then filter from there.
No,
Yeah.
like,
I don't know if
no,
that's the best route,
normal.
just an idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The enhancements are the ones, that have the greatest impact
Right.
on the largest number of users,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So way to
That's why I said I suppose that's where it'd be hard to get that direct line to ModuleWorks, because it
Mhm.
might be an OEM issue or an OEM enhancement
Right.
on their end, and not actually a toolpath enhancement.
Well,
like if
they could
I
do
want
that.
my button on a different page.
yeah. You could submit an idea, and if it gets 100 votes, then it gets processed to the next point.
Yep.
I was curious about something. I know we kind of touched on the process of developing the toolpath technology earlier, but let's just say Mastercam comes to you guys and says, "Hey, I want to develop this kind of toolpath." And I realize this is a very open-ended question, but what kind of time frame are you looking at to go from idea to release, and how many people become involved with that process? Brad earlier was telling me that you guys have grown a lot in the last 15, 20 years to 300 or so people. Is that right?
So we're 370 people around about, and then 80% roughly, or 70 to 80% are in development. So we have maybe 250 developers. How long it will take usually obviously depends on the request. So if it's a small
course.
enhancement, we would just do it right away, and it will be available in the next release. So maybe it's a time frame of 3 to 6 months to be released on our end. And then obviously the customer has to integrate it themselves, and then it will take another maybe, 6 months for them to release it. For bigger things, we usually have a more complicated or more complex process where we really try to understand, okay, what is the problem you're trying to solve here? What tool exists and how do we get there? We define a clear roadmap item for that, put it on the roadmap, and then at some point it gets developed. And usually this roadmap is built from multiple customer inquiries. So if many of our partners have facing the same problem and they want a solution for that, obviously that raises the priority. On top of this, if there's master come and they say, well, we're the only one having that problem, but for us it's the most urgent priority topic that we have, they can do something which we call accelerated development. So they pay us some amount, and then that topic will get priority. We will develop it on a fast track.
Okay.
Do you guys have any exclusive licensing for toolpaths? If a company comes to you and says, I want to develop this toolpath, but I want it exclusive to us?
Yeah, it's a good question. Obviously, that comes up every time. I think everybody just wants to have a unique toolpath in any form, but it's very difficult. So whatever we would develop and it's relevant for the whole industry, making that exclusive to one single partner means that all the other partners have to develop it themselves. And it somehow hinders innovation in some form.
That makes sense.
So
if they want to pay $100 million, we'll do it.
Well, even then, I'm not certain if we would do it forever exclusively. I think even then we would say, well, exclusive for 5 years, but afterwards we have to enable it for the industry. Otherwise, we're stopping the market from going forward. So, usually we're very, very hesitant with that. If we do something exclusively, either it's time limited or the scope is very, very narrow, meaning it's for a very, very niche application where we know certainly nobody will be interested in that.
Oh, okay.
Like we did a project for hobbing of parts, really, really fast hobbing, and there was not even a machine existing for that. There, for example, we did an exclusive development.
Yeah, because I know, for example, CamWorks had it's called multi-axis mill operation. It kind of condensed all the surfacing into one, but I haven't seen any other cam systems have it up until about, I think 2 years ago, Mastercam finally released one. So I don't know if maybe that was something that was exclusive, or maybe you guys developed it and it was kind of testing for them and then it was released to everybody.
About the specific thing that you mentioned here, I don't know. But usually if it's, I said we're really, really hesitant about exclusive development. So I cannot really think of different things that we did exclusively for partners.
That makes sense, because if you do it for one company, then they're kind of holding on to that market share.
Sometimes companies get a marketing lead, so we say, okay, you get exclusively on the marketing, so we will market it together for a year, and other partners can take it. But if we do any marketing, it will be with you.
Oh, that makes sense.
So there are ways to, let's say, satisfy that need, but in general, we don't want to harm innovation.
It's also contradicted to the entire business idea, right? It's why spend time, money, and effort developing something that does X, Y, and Z? You should be focused on the specialized stuff. We provide a lot of the X, Y, and Z.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I understand if this is something you can't really answer, but on the subject of exclusive technology, one of the biggest examples of that I can think of is Sandvik's prime turning, which I think was only available in Mastercam for a few years, and now I think SolidCam has it now, and I'm sure it's getting else. Was ModuleWorks involved with that?
No, I think that's maybe one of the exceptions where we do exclusive development.
Okay.
However, this is not exclusive development because Sandvik requested to do exclusive development, but they had a patent, or they have a patent on the method.
Oh.
So in that area, again, if it's very specific, or if somebody holds a patent on a certain machining method, then we will do exclusive development, because anyways they have the exclusivity in some form because they have the patent.
They're also not a competitor to CAM companies,
Yeah.
right?
Sure. They're a tooling manufacturer.
Well,
Right.
So
now
you can
they
patent-
yes and no, right? They
Yeah.
they own Mastercam, Gibson, Cimatron, very
Yeah.
custom.
True.
Yeah.
So you can patent toolpath methods.
Uh,
So is that
yeah, I mean they have a patent on description of how the tool flows through the material, so to say, about the method of how to cut with that tool. Not certainly on the development algorithm.
Yep.
I think patenting algorithms, it's possible, but it's I mean, you can in development you can always have multiple ways to get to the same result. So if you have a patent on it, like Volumal has a patent on, or Celerative has a patent on Volumal, but there are other companies having similar cycles which just have a mathematical different background on how to solve that problem.
interesting.
Hmm.
So we've talked about toolpaths. It's something when we talked about a month ago, I didn't realize ModuleWorks is involved in the machine tool builder side as far as programming on the control. I guess probably the biggest example would be Herco. How in depth are you guys in that? Because is that almost all controls you guys are involved with, or?
Yeah, I mean, as I think said earlier, we are working with 3 out of 4 major control makers, and we also work with a number of machine tool builders. And I mean, for ever, maybe 40%, even more percent of the parts are being programmed on a machine. So there are always capabilities somehow to make, obviously, the machine move using the machine control, conventional programming. And we develop also software that can be installed on the control, that is installed on the control, that has toolpath capabilities in it.
Okay.
And are you guys, so when you guys are developing that stuff for machine tool, do you guys have them controls in-house that you can put the software in there and do it, or is it all done offline?
Both. So many of the control makers, they also have emulators running on the desktop.
Oh,
Obviously, then we can also test and see how it works. But yes, we do have a number of controls at ModuleWorks headquarters.
and how in depth can they get as far as, I've used an Easy Track that's many years old, but how in depth can some of these controls get as far as program and selecting operations? Is VoluMill available on any of these for rough and cycles?
Not yet, but could be. So, I mean, in theory, you could add any kind of toolpath to the control. The question is how much sense it makes, because you want the machine to move. You don't want to stop the machine and do programming, and because in the meantime the machine cannot do anything else. So usually you would just do singular operations, very simple stuff on the machine directly, mostly maybe turning or prismatic parts. So we really focus on those areas which are yet today being produced on the machine. There's it doesn't make any sense to have a full swing CAD/CAM system on the control.
Yep.
There's
That makes sense.
scan cycles, routines.
Yeah. So you're doing a drill in operation, face in operation, part perimeters, some basic stuff that's quick and simple.
Yeah. We have a product called Next Generation Shop Floor Programming, or in short, NGSP. And that's, again, something which is installed on a control where you can upload the 3D part. So you have like a nice and very good looking system installed where you can see the 3D part and you can click on the part and easily machine it. So maybe you want to check out that one, because from our perspective, that's
Revolutionary.
Thank you.
Sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Will work.
So is that what they have on, like, say, I saw it at IMTS, is a track machine? They did a demo for us and they had the part on the screen and they could select surfaces and like face it. That was a pretty cool thing to see. Like I said, I got an Easy Track and it's typing in numbers and little blocks. I can't see a part. It's old school, but
Yeah.
I had one question for both of you before we wrap up. I noticed on your guys, I think either your website or your Instagram page, ModuleWorks was rated by an organization called Great Place to Work as being a great place to work. And I'm curious, what do you guys feel like makes that true? Or if you're not worried about your job security, why that's not true?
Well,
How were you guys nominated?
We have pretty decent employee rights in Germany, so I'm not scared about losing my job. No, I mean, jokes aside, I think what probably makes the difference is that we have like that we almost have no hierarchy. So basically, everybody from the student worker up to the management basically has kind of the same say in meetings. So everybody is invited to give their feedback. So we have open feedback rounds. I think that's part of the culture. I think it's also because we're a pretty young company. We are a pretty young company. So maybe the average age is about 34 around about. We hire a lot of students directly from the university. And I think the whole environment about having such a young dynamic team probably makes a big difference.
Having 370 employees and being, a top employer speaks volumes to how you treat your employees.
Yeah.
I can tell you, Solaritive, we were a relatively small group, so not a good comparison. But I've worked for a lot of other very large software development companies, and internally they're like paramilitary organizations. ModuleWorks is more like church. It's everybody's brings a pie and they're kind and nice.
Yeah.
Is that the difference from U.S. to Germany?
No, because I've worked with with other German companies, and they can be paramilitary as well. ModuleWorks definitely has a unique environment, and like Julia said, it's a lot of young people, so it's almost a little bit Apple-esque, right?
Oh, okay.
And Greg, I shared the music you shared with me with Pat.
Yeah.
And Cam.
That was awesome.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
We're going to find something to put it on. Maybe we'll play it on here when it releases. I think the plan for this to release is next Tuesday.
I've got an updated version I can send you. It's a little cleaner.
All right.
Perfect.
Trying to figure out what to do with it because it's 3 minutes long and trying to figure out.
You can fade it out or whatever. Yeah.
Thanks for agreeing to do a podcast. This was before we even started the podcast. I'm going to get ModuleWorks on. Got to have ModuleWorks on.
Yeah.
It's been nice to be able to sort of pull back the curtain a little bit on like the behind the scenes aspect of the tool that most machine shops probably rely on the most is CAD CAM. And so our audience, reach out to ModuleWorks on Instagram and LinkedIn. You can follow them, check out what's new, what's coming up. And I was going through your Instagram page the other day, and it was just interesting seeing just the different technologies that are out there. So it can kind of open your mind up to what's out there that you may not see.
Awesome.
If you're in the middle forming and like learning about the industry, we're here to help inform people like you and me. We don't talk history or policies. We talk shop and methodologies. We don't care if you're an expert or a newbie. You're welcome in our community. If you ain't got nothing better to do, join us today and see what's new. It's free right here and on YouTube, and you just might learn a thing or two. Practical Machinist, the manufacturing technology community. We got shop tours, talks, and technology. Take a moment to visit our site and see We got tons of content about the industry. If you ain't got nothing better to do, join us today and see what's new. It's free right here and on YouTube, and you just might learn a thing or two. Practical Machinist, the manufacturing technology community. We've got shop tours, talks, and technology. Take a moment to visit our site and see. We've got tons of content about the industry. If you ain't got nothing better to do, join us today and see what's new. It's free right here and on YouTube, and you just might learn a thing or two.